Some defenders are best known for their positioning and ability to read the game, while others are known for their strength, aggression, and speed. But Antony Rudiger is famous for bringing on the heat. He is old school, aggressive as they come, yet brilliant on and off the ball. Rudiger's defensive qualities are top-notch, and those who try to mess with him totally regretted their actions. These 7 players dared to fight Rudiger. Let's see how that turned out. Now, we all know that most football fights are exaggerated shoving contests sprinkled with occasional WWE action. However, when Rudiger and Ramous squared up last year, we all feared the outcome because we've known Ramous to be a proper hard guy. Sevilla hosted Real Madrid in a La Liga clash, and we saw both defenders being friendly and joking around just 10 minutes before kickoff. It was a bit emotional for Ramous because he was now facing his old club for the first time since his emotional return to Sevilla, but all the emotions and camaraderie quickly faded once the match began, and it didn't take long before we saw Ramous and Rudiger at each other's throats. After being pushed by Rudiger a number of times, Ramous finally got fed up and slid into an argument with the German on the verge of halftime. He grabbed Rudiger by the face before teammates separated them. However, Rudiger wasn't just about to roll over and back down. He smiled and laughed at Ramous in the face as they continued to exchange words.
All players fell to the ground. It's not Ramous and Rudiger, not friends anymore. Well, it was always going to happen.
Both players hugged it out once the match ended, but Rudiger scored bonus points for standing up to one of the toughest guys in football history. Ramous spent 16 years at Madrid and won literally everything in football, and Rudiger was faced with the difficult task of stepping into those big shoes to replace Ramous. Most players would have run for their lives when confronted by Ramous, but not Rudiger. He thrives under those conditions, which is something we've seen before. We saw fireworks in 2021 when the ex-Chelsea defender faced Luis Suarez's Atletico Madrid in the first leg of their round of 16 Champions League clash in Bucharest. It wasn't the first time things had gotten spicy between both players, but they took it a step further this time coming into the match. The Blues were unbeaten in 7 games since Tuchel had taken charge. Rudiger had played in every one of those games and had been in beast mode, but he faced a stiff test against Suarez. We all know Suarez, his antics, and how he loves to wind opponents up, not to mention the risk of being eaten for lunch. Excuse the pun. Suarez decided it was time for some action in the second half of the match. After being checked by Rudiger at the edge of the box while trying to guide the ball, Suarez snapped at Rudiger, but the German was having none of it. He immediately squared up to Suarez to assert some dominance over the Uruguayan striker. Here's how it played out.
Doesn't need to get involved. It doesn't need to even think about putting his hand near Suarez's face, Rudiger. Somebody needs to have a proper word with him now.
In the end, Suarez didn't get a single shot on target all game as the Blues put Atletico to the sword. Rudiger continues to give the best strikers in the world a hard time, and Erling Haaland is perhaps one of the best examples. Rudiger almost always comes out on top in their duels. The real fireworks, however, came last year when Rudiger detonated on Florian Lejeune. In the dying minutes of Real Madrid's 0-0 draw against Rayo Vallecano, Rudiger and Lejeune got into a heated moment. Rudiger was trying to win a late corner after getting the ball on the byline, but then got annoyed with Lejeune trying to push him. After winning the corner, Rudiger lost his temper and started to shove Lejeune multiple times, and as if that wasn't enough, Rudiger then whispered something into his ears and pretty much seemed ready to square up before both players got booked by the referee and separated. Safe to say that Lejeune didn't expect what was coming. After the match, he said that Rudiger said some serious words to him during the heated exchange and that those words were not acceptable. To his credit, Rudiger later apologized in the tunnel. He probably wouldn't have done that a couple of years ago because all hell broke loose in May 2021 when Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea faced Leicester. With automatic Champions League qualification up for grabs between both teams, we knew the atmosphere was gonna be tense. But what we didn't know was what Rudiger was gonna do. With Chelsea leading the Foxes 2-1, things got heated towards the end of the game because Ricardo Pereira caught his former Leicester teammate Ben Chilwell with a late tackle. This led to a mass touchline brawl. Rudiger immediately squared up to Pereira, and before we knew it, things escalated quickly with other players, coaches, and substitutes now involved. Both teams were charged by the FA for failing to control their players and staff. But for Rudiger, these two lesser teammates were faced with the impossible task of holding him back. That's the thing with Rudiger. You never want to bring out the beast in him, not even as a teammate. A couple of years ago, Thomas Tuchel was once forced to send the German away from training early after he was involved in a heated dispute with his own teammate Kepa Arrizabalaga. The incident occurred less than 24 hours after Chelsea's shock 5-2 defeat to West Brom at Stamford Bridge. The incident took place after Rudiger went in late on the Chelsea goalkeeper. Arrizabalaga reacted badly, and what followed was an angry exchange of opinions that later turned physical. The rest of the teammates had to separate them, but Tuchel had already seen enough. He ordered Rudiger back to the changing room for not being calm enough. Kepa finished the session with the rest of the teammates. Rudiger apologized to both player and coach, and when the media probed into the situation further, Tuchel was the first person to defend his players.
What happened between Johnny Rudiger and Kepa on Sunday much more serious?
No, I will tell you if it was so, but it was not, and it had nothing to do with the defeat. It was just an incident in training, and it got heated up between Tony and Kepa.
But fast forward to this year, and Rudiger was back at it again, fighting another teammate. Rudiger and Niklas Füllkrug almost traded blows during Germany's open day training ahead of the Euro 2024. The word on the street is that they needed to be separated by Germany's assistant boss, Sandro Wagner. Here's a little backstory. Both players had crossed paths a couple of days earlier when Real Madrid beat Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League final. However, they soon found themselves on the same German team for a routine training session in front of fans. Füllkrug was not happy with Rudiger after his teammate's strong tackle had him lying on the floor in a heap. After swearing and shouting at Rudiger, the striker got up and charged towards Rudiger, and a pushing contest ensued. But what happens on the pitch stays on the pitch. Both players settle with each other after the session, but it goes without saying that you are not entirely safe as long as Rudiger is on the pitch. And it doesn't always matter if you're on his side. Just the other day, we saw Rudiger repeatedly slap a Real Madrid staff member in training.
In the midst of an intenso Real Madrid training session, Antonio Rudiger appeared tense ahead of today's match against Espanyol. With the atmosphere was supposed to be lively, but suddenly, Rudiger confronted a member of the coaching staff. In an unexpected turn of events,
And for many who witnessed the incident, it was extremely difficult to tell if it was a joke or not. Although you can always count on Rudiger to always give 100% to the cause, it just happens to be that he sometimes plays on the edge, leaving even his teammates running for their lives. Both Bellingham and Vinicius have been victims of Rudiger's playful aggression, and it's safe to say that they don't want any smoke from the German. Bellingham knows a thing or two about being bullied by a 6'3" defender, and Vinicius also has an idea of what it means to be put in a headlock. But at the end of the day, Rudiger is one of the biggest personalities in the Madrid squad and among center backs in Europe. The 31-year-old has been impressive in Germany, Italy, England, and now Spain. When Madrid's defense got wrecked by a trio of anterior cruciate ligament tears suffered by goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois and center backs Eder Militao and David Alaba, Rudiger helped the club to the La Liga and Champions League trophy with ease. This speaks volumes about Rudiger's qualities as a defender. He is super active on set pieces, extremely brave in one-on-one situations, and is mostly safe in build-up play. And anyone who dares to fight the German will most likely regret it. The fight doesn't end on the pitch for Rudiger. He continues to be one of the most vocal players against racism in the sport. He has written articles and often spoken about his experiences. Rudiger is likely to remain at Madrid for the foreseeable future, and whether you love him or hate him, nothing changes the fact that Antonio Rudiger is a fighter.